Big day, closing arguments set to begin in just hours in the Paul Manafort fraud trial. Manafort's defense team rested yesterday without calling any witnesses to the stand. Was that a good move? Let's bring back Shan Wu. He's Rick Gates' former lawyer, a CNN legal analyst, and attorney and legal affairs commentator, and CNN legal analyst Ariva Martin. I want to talk about today in a second, but let's review what happened yesterday first. No defense witnesses, didn't stage any affirmative defense there, Ariva. You suggest there are two possible major reasons for this. One of them is that the Manafort defense team might just be planning for some kind of presidential pardon.
Yes, John, we've heard all along that Paul Manafort hasn't cooperated with the special counsel, hasn't been willing to enter into any kind of plea deal, and that's all because there's some speculation that he may believe that Donald Trump is going to pardon him, and so no matter what the outcome of this particular trial, he's going to get a free, get out of jail pass from the president. But the other issue is, there's not much that Paul Manafort can say in light of the incredible amount of evidence that was presented during this trial. This wasn't just Rick Gates, the alleged liar, testifying in this trial. This was mounds and mounds of documentary evidence, from bank statements to emails to other documents that really demonstrated to this jury how complicated and how involved this criminal scheme was that Paul Manafort and Rick Gates were involved in. And what we know about these kinds of cases is a bad defense can make a prosecution's case even better.
And Shannon, I know you had pointed to those documents as well. This mountain, this paper trail that was there that was presented. What's also fascinating is what we're learning about perhaps Rick Gates' role in all of this. And the fact that Robert Mueller, according to our reporting here, wasn't necessarily as interested in the Manafort stuff as they are for everything else that is still to come, according to reporting from our Evan Perez. And I just want to read this here. In this court filing earlier this week, the first signs of how the Mueller team plans to use the information from Gates to tie Manafort possibly to a Russian intelligence agency. Surprising at all that that's coming out now?
No, I think...
Matter of course.
I think it is a matter of course in terms of the timing of things. With the trial, we finally began to get a little bit of a peek as to how much the Mueller team has already assembled on it. So I think they were careful not to veer off course into collusion. They weren't supposed to do that. It's about taxes and bank fraud. But I think we're definitely getting a little hint as to how much they already know.
And one of the things, Shan, that is interesting here is we heard the defense try to tar, to an extent, Rick Gates, who was your former client. And again, just as you always stipulate, you are not commenting on anything other than what's in the public record. You're protecting attorney-client privilege here. But it seems to me in their closing argument, they are going to try to make the case, in a sense, that Rick Gates is the real criminal here, or at least a worse criminal, and he's the one who should be to blame. And jury, you've been listening to this trial. Paul Manafort should get a break.
I think that's right. They've gained a little bit of credibility by promising they would show some things such as Gates having stolen, and they've done that, so that always helps the defense. But I think Ariva's right. There's a lot of paper evidence here, and one factor they may try to suggest is this notion of jury nullification, which is they may say to the jury, look, there is so much wrongdoing being forgiven here, not only by Gates but by these other immunized witnesses, that they may try and suggest that this just isn't really fair, that there's something else going on here. It's not really a proper administration of justice to go after Mr. Manafort for these tax and bank fraud cases when there's so much being forgiven in terms of other people's wrongdoing. That's what we call a jury nullification argument, and that could play here too as well.
There's been a lot of focus over the course of the last, 11 days in total that we had for the Manafort trial. A lot of focus on the judge as well. And the judge saying, we know closing arguments begin this morning. They will have 2 hours, but the judge making it very clear he believes it should be wrapped up in about a quarter of the time. I'll give you this time, but you shouldn't really need that much. Ariva, is that surprising, or is there anything we should read into that, or is this more of, this is the way Judge Ellis runs his courtroom?
I think this is more of the way Judge Ellis runs his courtroom. He has made it clear from the start of this trial that he is in control, not the litigants, not the parties, that he is the ruler of his courtroom. We've seen him be very active, going as far as questioning witnesses, making statements, and even sparring with the prosecution more so than the defense team. So I don't think any of that will change. I think until a verdict is rendered in this trial, this judge will continue to be actively involved as a jurist. Now, some have questioned whether he has crossed the line, but other lawyers that have appeared in this courtroom say this is how he tries his cases.
I do think lawyers from both sides will be careful during closing arguments because they don't want the judge involved during those closing arguments. Shan, I do want to ask you one question, if I can, about the non-disclosure agreement, the Camerota issue. We all have been told, and we realize, that a non-disclosure agreement signed inside the White House as a government employee, that is not legal or constitutional in any way. But if she did sign one with the campaign in 2016, could that compel her to start being more silent, shall we say, going forward? Could that be enforceable?
I think it could be enforceable. I think there's an interesting question about that non-disclosure signed with the campaign, which is, can she parse it out and say it only controls information relating to the campaign period, not the White House? I think there's a floating issue here that hasn't really been explored yet as to whether it's proper, if it's the campaign paying her essentially money to be quiet. That may be a questionable thing to do from a campaign, although they may have been planning to give her some sort of a nominal type job. But I think it is possibly enforceable. Practically, I don't get the impression that anything's going to silence her at this point. I think she's just going to keep leaning on into it.
I will note she was more careful last night than she has been in some time with the choice of her words. Shan Wu, Ariba, thanks so much for being with us. I really do appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Good
Thanks,
to be here.
John.
A CNN exclusive, a Pentagon